If you're new to audiobooks, you may wonder how you can do it without breaking the bank. And if you are breaking the bank, stay tuned. So, as it should be no surprise, our favorite place to get audiobooks is from the library. Just as you can check out print books, you can also check out digital books. And it's usually done through an app called the Libby app. Used to be known as Overdrive. It was the same database, but two different apps. It's fully transitioned over to Libby now. And that's where your library chooses titles to buy for your library, for their patrons. Now, to set it up, you can usually access Libby through your library's website, or you can just go straight to the App Store, Apple, Android, Kindle, search for the Libby app. You'll search for your library, put in your library card information, and set it up. Now, when your library does it, just as they choose the book titles, as I said, they also will set up how many books you can check out at a time, as well as for how long. Usually it's 14 days. Sometimes you have the option to make it 21 days. And this is for audiobooks and ebooks as well. I'm going to do a separate video about ebooks. So if you're interested, stay tuned, probably later this summer. So Libby, that's what we use. 90% of our books come from there. I like that it can be used offline, so you don't have to have an internet connection. It syncs across devices, so if I'm listening to it on my phone in the car and I get home and I'm working on the computer, I can pick up from there as well. So I love that. And no internet connection. The app, I think the Overdrive app was a little easier to use, but so Libby was a learning curve for me, but it's not bad once you kind of figure it out. If your library does not have a large selection, you can subscribe to out-of-state libraries for a very reasonable fee. So you may have heard me talk before about Brooklyn. Brooklyn last summer discontinued their out-of-state library card. However, they still offer a free one if you have a teenager. So before it was $50. Now, if you're a teenager, you can get one for free. But besides Brooklyn, Fairfax, Virginia has one. I believe it's Dallas has one. New Orleans, I would think. Charlotte. And they're all... $50 is the most I've ever seen. Most of them are less than that. So for a year, that's a really reasonable fee. Some libraries also offer a service called Hoopla. Advantage of Hoopla is that titles are always available. So with Libby, it's the same way if you went to the library and a book was out, someone else had it, you had to wait. Same thing happens with Libby. Hoopla does not have that restriction. On the other hand, you have to have an internet connection. So while Hoopla is great for availability, it's not as easy to use in the car, especially if you have a tablet or something that doesn't have internet connection. Before I move on to the paid ones, I've got one more free one, and it is an app called Librivox. It's also a website. Librivox, I first discovered it, Elizabeth was 2, I think. So it's been around 16 or more years. I don't know how long. It is all free, but this is a public database. So open source books, original stories, older titles. You're not going to find new titles here. And rather than professional narrators, it's volunteer narrators. Now, some of them are professionals who do this as a volunteer service. Some of them are people who just have a real passion for narration and do it. I have never had a bad narrator. Some that aren't necessarily ones I like, but that's true with professional ones as well. One thing that I like about Librivox is that it kind of forces me to stumble upon books that I would never have otherwise chosen. Because, same way with when you go to the library and you gravitate towards the table of recently returned books or bestsellers or ones they're highlighting, that when you open up the Libby app, they've got ones, they're doing the same thing, they're highlighting ones. And that's where I tend to gravitate, plus the authors I know, etc. Librivox has introduced me to a lot of stories that I would absolutely never have chosen, but I really enjoyed. So I love that about Librivox. And if you need titles that are more of your classic stories for your kiddos, this is a great option. Now, paid. You probably know Audible, and you probably know that Audible has a monthly subscription. You can do that. In fact, I've got a link down there where you can get 2 free books instead of 1 if you give the 30-day free trial. They're your books to keep. But did you know that you don't have to have a subscription? You can buy books from them, even their sale books. And that's what I want to highlight, because I keep my wish list stocked of books that I think are ones that I would actually want to buy, whether they are ones that we might use for school or books that I anticipate my boys listening to over and over, because even at 13 and 15, they still have books that they listen to over and over and over. I cannot tell you how many times they've gone through the Harry Potter series on Audible, for example. Or the Wonder and what's the sequel? Augie? Whatever that one is. They love those as well. So I keep my wish list stocked on there. And I do the wish list because when those titles go on sale, I'll get an email. And I can hop on, see what the sale is. Often books will be like in the $3 to $8 range, which is super reasonable, especially if they're books that you're going to repeat over and over. Last one is a service called Scribd, and it operates similar to Hoopla in that titles are always available. You don't have to wait like you do with Libby. But there is a monthly fee. I think the fee is $12 a month, and you have access to audiobooks, ebooks, magazines. They have sheet music if you are a musician. Might be a great option. Because their business model is such as it is, they have a huge selection of titles. So especially if your family likes more obscure titles and they go through a lot, Scribd might be a great option for you. But definitely try Hoopla as well and Libby before you subscribe to Scribd, because I think those would support your local public library and save the money, honestly. So now that you know how to get your audiobooks, go check out the video on your screen and get some title suggestions for great audiobooks to fill up your summer.